Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today, we are going to read this suspension entitlements of the CCS CCA rules. So, here we begin. It says grant of subsistence allowance. के तो जो grant है subsistence allowance की किसको दी जाती है? That is a government servant under suspension जो है or deemed to have been placed under suspension or by an order of the appointing authority shall be entitled for this. ठीक है, तो जो भी सस्पेंशन में है उनको they are entitled for this. In case of a commissioned officer of the Indian Medical Department or warrant officer in civil employee who is liable to revert to military duty, the pay and allowances to which he would have been entitled had he been suspended while in military employment. कुछ समझ में नहीं आया. A government servant under suspension or deemed to have been placed under suspension or by an order of the appointed authority shall be entitled for following payments, namely क्या क्या है, क्या क्या पेमेंट्स हैं, फॉलोइंग पेमेंट्स हो जाएंगे जो भी हैं. फर्स्ट है इन केस ऑफ अ कमीशन ऑफिसर ऑफ द इंडियन मेडिकल डिपार्टमेंट. इंडियन मेडिकल ऑफिसर का मेडिकल ऑफिसर जो है इंडियन मेडिकल डिपार्टमेंट का कोई भी कमीशन ऑफिसर और वारंट ऑफिसर इन सिविल एम्प्लॉय और सिविल एम्प्लॉयमेंट में कोई भी वारंट ऑफिसर है हु इज़ लाइबल टू रिवर्ट टू मिलिट्री ड्यूटी, जो कि लाइबल है कि वो वापस जो है मिलिट्री ड्यूटी जा सकते हैं. द पे एंड अलाउंसेस टू विच ही वुड हैव बीन एंटाइटल्ड had he been suspended by military, the pay and allowances to which he would have been entitled, जो पे और अलाउंसेस के हैं वो जो है उनके लिए एंटाइटल होते हैं had he been suspended, अगर वो सस्पेंडेड होते while in military employment. तो क्या बताते हैं, इन द केस ऑफ एनी गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट, in case of a commissioned officer of an Indian medical department or warrant officer in civil employee who is liable to revert to military duty. ठीक है, तो ये इंडियन मेडिकल डिपार्टमेंट या फिर ये कमीशन ऑफिसर या फिर वारंट ऑफिसर इन सिविल एम्प्लॉय हु इज़ लाइबल टू रिवर्ट टू मिलिट्री ड्यूटी, अगर उनको मिलिट्री ड्यूटी में रिवर्ट कर दिया जाए, द पे एंड अलाउंसेस टू विच ही वुड हैव बीन एंटाइटल्ड, जिस जो पे और एंटाइटल के लिए वो एम्प्लॉयमेंट होंगे हैड बीन सस्पेंड, अगर वो सस्पेंडेड होते वाइल इन मिलिट्री एम्प्लॉयमेंट, तो वो उसको कुछ उन्होंने सब्सटेंस अलाउंस बोला गया. ठीक है, देखिए in any case of any government servant, okay, a subsistence allowance at an amount equal to the leave salary which the government servant would have drawn if he had been on leave on half average pay or half pay, and in addition dear allowance if admissible on the basis of such leave salary. तो पढ़ लेते क्या है, मतलब कोई भी जो सब्सिस्टेंस अलाउंस है इट इज एन अमाउंट equal to the leave salary. It is equal to the leave salary which the government servant would have drawn if he had been on leave. ठीक है, अगर कोई भी जो गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट अगर वो छुट्टी पर होते तो उनको लीव सैलरी जितनी मिली जाती ना, would have drawn if he had been on leave on half average pay, leave on half average pay or half pay or on half pay in addition, मतलब उनकी आधी सैलरी जो है, जो भी उनकी लीव सैलरी है आधी सैलरी, एंड इन एडिशन के साथ साथ में क्या है, earnings allowance if applicable on the basis of such leave salary. ठीक है, प्रोवाइडेड दैट वेयर द पीरियड ऑफ सस्पेंशन एक्सीड्स 3 months, जहाँ पर भी जो है पीरियड ऑफ सस्पेंशन जो है दैट एक्सीड्स 3 month, द अथॉरिटी विच मेड और इज डीम्ड टू हैव मेड द ऑर्डर ऑफ सस्पेंशन शैल बी कंपेरेंट टू वेरी द अमाउंट ऑफ सब्सटेंशन. ठीक है, तो इस केस में जो है जो भी जो अथॉरिटी जो है, the authority, okay, which made or is deemed to have made the order of suspension shall be competent to vary the amount of subsistence. ठीक है, अगर आप 3 महीने से ज़्यादा एक्सीड करते हैं पीरियड ऑफ सस्पेंशन, 3 महीने से ज़्यादा होता है तो वो जो आपका अमाउंट ऑफ सब्सटेंस है वो चेंज हो सकता है फ्रॉम फॉर एनी पीरियड सब्सिक्वेंट टू दैट पीरियड फॉर द फर्स्ट 3 months. ठीक है, फॉर एनी पीरियड के लिए सब्सिक्वेंट टू द पीरियड ऑफ द फर्स्ट 3 months के बाद. ठीक है, तो वो क्या क्या है, द अमाउंट ऑफ सब्सिस्टेंस अलाउंस में बी इंक्रीज, वो इंक्रीज भी किया जा सकता है बाई अ सुटेबल अमाउंट नॉट एक्सीडिंग 50%, ज़्यादा 50% ना है उसका 50% ऑफ द सब्सिडेंस अलाउंस एडमिसिबल ड्यूरिंग द पीरियड ऑफ द फर्स्ट 3 months if in the opinion the side of the period of suspension has been prolonged for reasons to be recorded in writing uh, not directly attributable to the government servant. तो उस केस में जो है वो अगर आपका पीरियड ऑफ सस्पेंशन जो है प्रोलॉन्ग हुआ है फॉर रीजंस टू बी रिकॉर्डेड इन राइटिंग, इट इज़ नॉट एट्रीब्यूटेबल टू द गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट. ठीक है, अगर दूसरा के लिए क्या बोलता है कि वो रिड्यूस भी किया जा सकता है. ठीक है, नॉट एक्सीडिंग 50% ऑफ द सस्पेंशन अलाउंस एडमिसिबल ड्यूरिंग द पीरियड ऑफ फर्स्ट 3 months इन द ओपिनियन ऑफ द सेनेटर दैट पीरियड ऑफ सस्पेंशन जो है हैज़ बीन प्रोलॉन्ग्ड, तो आपका सस्पेंशन का पीरियड है वो प्रोलॉन्ग किया गया है ड्यू टू द रीजंस रिकॉर्ड इन राइटिंग, राइटिंग में रिकॉर्ड करना है आपको, दैट इज डायरेक्टली एट्रीब्यूटेबल टू द गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट. अगर गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट की वजह से हुआ तो उसको डिक्रीज भी किया जाता है. The rate of dearness allowance will be based on the increase or decrease as the case may be. Amount of allowance admissible under this. The rate of dearness allowance will be based on the increased as the case may be or the decreased amount of subsistence allowance admissible under subclause 1 and 2 above. फिर बोलते हैं एनी अदर कंपनसेटरी अलाउंसेज एडमिसिबल फ्रॉम टाइम टू टाइम, कोई भी जो कंपनसेटरी अलाउंसेज जो हैं admissible from time to time on the basis of pay, on the basis of pay of which the government servant was in receipt of the date of suspension subject on the fulfillment of other conditions laid down for the dole of such allowances, तो वो भी उनको मिलेंगे. तो any other compensatory allowances admissible from time to time, जो कि admissible है time to time on the basis of pay of which the government servant was in receipt of the on the date of suspension, ठीक है, जो गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट है was in receipt on the date of suspension subject to the fulfillment of, वो भी मिलते रहेंगे उनको सब्जेक्ट टू द फुलफिलमेंट ऑफ अदर कंडीशन लेड डाउन फॉर द ड्रॉल ऑफ सच अलाउंसेस. ठीक है, तो बोल रहा है उसमें क्या दिया है, सब्जेक्ट फॉर द फुलफिलमेंट ऑफ अदर कंडीशंस लेड डाउन फॉर द ड्रॉल ऑफ सच अलाउंसेस. ठीक है, दैट नो पेमेंट अंडर सब रूल 1, अंडर सब रूल 1 shall be made unless the government servant furnishes a certificate that he is not engaged in any other employment, business, profession or vocation. तो ये जो कह रहे हैं ना आपका वन जो है इन केस ऑफ, नहीं वन क्या बोलता है आपका, देन अ सब्सिस्टेंस अलाउंस, ठीक है, यही बोल रहा है ना आपका ग्रांट ऑफ सब्सिस्टेंस अलाउंस. ठीक है, एन अमाउंट ऑफ इक्वल टू द लीव सैलरी जो है ऑन हाफ एवरेज पे और हाफ पे इन एडिशन टू द डियरनेस अलाउंस. तो ये बोलता है यहाँ पर कि नो पेमेंट अंडर सब रूल 1 शैल बी मेड unless the government servant furnishes a certificate. क्या करते हैं वो, he furnishes a certificate that he is not engaged in any other employment. ठीक है, provided that in case of government servant dismissed, removed or compulsory retired from service who is deemed to have been placed uh, or continue to be under suspension from date of such dismissal or removal of under this and who fails to produce a certificate. Provided that in case of government servant dismissed, in case the case of a government servant dismissed, removed, या फिर compulsory retire from service who is deemed to have been placed or continue to be under suspension from the date of such dismissal. ठीक है, ठीक है, तो इसमें and who fails to produce such a certificate for any period or periods during which he is deemed to be placed or continue to be under suspension, he shall be entitled. तो इस केस में क्या होगा, he shall be entitled to the subsistence allowance and other allowance equal to the amount by which his earnings during such period or period as the case may be fall short of the amount of subsistence allowance and other allowance that would otherwise be admissible to him, where the subsistence allowance and other allowances admissible to him are equal to or less than amount earned by him, nothing in this provision shall apply to him. पेमेंट ऑफ सब्सिस्टेंस अलाउंस अब कैसे करता है, इनिशियल ग्रांट कैसे दी जाती है. अ गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट under suspension is entitled to subsistence and other allowances from the date and during the period of suspension under the statutory provision of FR 53. बोलता है इनिशियल ग्रांट की बात करें, अ गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट अंडर सस्पेंशन इज एंटाइटल्ड टू सब्सिस्टेंस एंड अदर allowances from the date and during the period of suspension under the statutory provision of FR 53. The subsistence allowance shall not be denied on any ground unless a government servant is unable to. तो ये कह रहा है कि जो भी subsistence allowance है, ठीक है, it shall not be denied to on any ground unless a government servant जो है is unable to or does not furnish a certificate that he is not engaged in any other employment. ठीक है, a certificate for making payment. Each claim for subsistence and compensatory allowance should be supported. Each claim है ना आपका जितना भी claim है for subsistence and compensatory allowance should be supported by a certificate. It should be by a certificate by the government servant concerned to the effect that he was not engaged in any employment. ठीक है, during the period the claim relates. First review करता है, it is obligatory in the fact that in sufficient time before the expiry of the first 12 months of suspension the competent authority should review each case. ठीक है, यहाँ पर इसके अलावा बोलता है it is obligatory under article 53 that in sufficient time before the expiry of the first 12 months, ठीक है, now of suspension the competent authority should, rather it is 3 months, ठीक है, 3 months the competent authority should review each case in which the period of suspension is likely to exceed 3 months, and even if comes to the conclusion that the rate is not to be altered having regard to all the circumstances of the case, specific order to the past with releasing an on report the circumstances under which the decision be taken. Okay, बोलता है फर्स्ट रिव्यू कहता है, it is obligatory under article 53 under FR 33 that it is that in sufficient time before the expiry of the first now जो है 3 months of suspension. Competent authority should review each case in which the period of suspension is likely to exceed 12 months. ठीक है, likely to exceed 12 months. नहीं यार 3 months है ये. It is obligated and following that sufficient time before the expiry of the 3 months of suspension. The competent authority should review करना है competent authority के period of suspension likely to जहाँ पर भी 3 महीने से ज़्यादा हो रहा है. Even it comes to the conclusion that the rate is not to be altered. अगर वो कहते हैं कि जो rate है ना is not to be altered having regard to all the circumstances of the case. Specific orders जो है आपको फिर एक specific orders जो है are to be passed placing on record the circumstances under which the decision had to be taken. According to the provision of Article 53(1)(1)(2)(a), the authority which made or is deemed to have made the order of suspension of a government servant is competent to vary the amount of suspension. ठीक है, यहाँ पर जो है the क्या कहता है गवर्नमेंट servant competent to होता है the authority, कौन सी authority which is made or deemed to have made the order of suspension, okay, is competent to vary the amount of subsistence allowance from any period subsequent to the period of first 6 months of suspension. ठीक है, subsequent to the period of first 6 of subsistence allowance can be increased by a suitable amount not exceeding 50% of the allowance granted for the first 6 months. If in the opinion of the said authority the period of suspension was prolonged due to reasons of the court and not attributable to the government servant, similarly the subsistence allowance can be reduced by exceeding by amount not exceeding 50% of the subsistence allowance if it allows if the total and due to the reason court and directly attributable to the government servant. ठीक है, it is obligated this variation of substance and this variation जो है of subsistence allowance obligatory under article FR 30. The staff side of the National Council had suggested that the subsistence allowance payable to a government servant under suspension should be reviewed for an increase or decrease after a period of 90 days. ठीक है, after a period of 90 days from the suspension of 6 months. The matter has been examined by the government. It has been decided that a review of the suspension would be made at the end of 3 months. And that a review जो है of the allowance would be made after the end of 3 months. Instead of present practice of varying allowance to after 6 months. It will also give an opportunity to the conveyed to the concerned authority to review not merely the question. Minister of Finance have bring to authority. They would continue to process allowance at the rate of salary or half pay or half average until the computer pass an order. In view of the fact that any failure on the part of government authority to pass an order as soon as has been under suspension for 12 months, 3 months, sorry, can either involve in serious hardship terms of concern. The request to issue them to have powers to them to with the view to ensure that action is sufficient time लीजिए आप 3 महीने. Second मतलब second or second review. Though the provision of Chapter 3(1) does not specifically provide for a second or second review, there is no objection to such review being made by the commander. Such authority shall come to pass orders to increase or decrease the rate of a second review can be made at any time at the अगर ये देखना चाहिए तो सेकंड सब्सिक्वेंट रिव्यू जो है दे कैन बी मेड एट एनी टाइम एट द डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ द competent authority. It is permissible to reduce the amount of subsidy allowance once increased on the basis of a 50% of the amount of the subsidy allowance initially granted. The period of suspension has been prolonged for lien directly attributable to the government servant by adopting that practice. Similarly, in a case where the amount of subsidy allowance has been reduced after the first review, lien can be increased by 50%. ठीक है, अगर वो जो है not attributable to the government servant and government servant has given up direct practice. Retrospective revision भी कर सकते हैं. Government do not consider any order revising the subsidy allowance should be given retrospective effect. Government do not consider advisable that any orders revising the subsidy allowance should be given retrospective effect. Okay? नहीं होना चाहिए. The above is merely an advice of the question and service guidelines. The authorities ordering variation in subsidy allowance who are supposed to initiate in time so that the requisite order can take effect as soon as the completes 3 months under suspension. The clarification paragraph cannot override the power conferred by the statute. In case an order of variation is passed by the government authority after quite some time from the expiry of the requisite 3 months and note authority satisfied that the variation has to be given a retrospective effect for reasons to be recorded in writing and the same would be valid and binding on all. Okay? यहाँ पर ये कह रहे हैं यहाँ पर in case an order of revision is from the by the government after quite some time from the in case an order for variation of R50 passed by the competent after quite some time, okay, from the expiry of the requisite 12 months and that authority is satisfied, अगर वो जो authority है that is satisfied that the variation जो है has been recorded in writing and orders accordingly the same would be valid and binding on क्या वो ठीक है। इसके बाद बोलता है deemed suspension and law of limitation. A government servant in whose case the order of suspension is deemed to have been continued in force and or who is deemed to have been placed under suspension from the date of original order of suspension, removal, compulsory retirement from the service under this. Uh, he is to be paid subsistence under the laws and responsible for the date of order or suspension. It is not to invoke the law of limitation while paying the arrears of other. It is necessary to invoke the law of limitation while paying the arrears of subsistence and other laws. Okay? So that deemed suspension and law of limitation. Government shall in case and in whose case the order of suspension is deemed to have been continued in force and or who is deemed to have been placed under suspension for the period of original of dismissal compulsory retirement from the service under rule this. Okay, he is to be paid subsistence allowance and other allowances. Yes, he is to be paid and other allowances under article with retrospect. Okay, from the date of order of such dismissal. Law of limitation while playing the remote. Okay. Okay. Timely payment of subsistence. In the case of this, Supreme Court has observed that where timely payment. Okay, government surrender to attend the inquiry. Okay, his inability to attend the inquiry on account of financial stringency caused by the non-payment of the hemi ex parte. The proceeding conduct against ex parte would be in violation of the this. Okay, तो इस केस में क्या बोलते हैं that such cases, you know, things जो है against him ex parte would be in violation of the provision of Article 311. As the person did not receive and did not defending the right to be upon all that they should make down the response to the government who are placed in that they may not be prudent financial is not very nature so is meant for and when doing the product is not allowed to perform a duty and they can be thereby earn a salary keeping in view of the person and governments and concerned had specific regulations ability to attend an inquiry on जी ये बताया गया इसके लिए नेक्स्ट आपका रिकवरीज फ्रॉम सब्सिडी द क्वेश्चन ऑफ रिकवरी अलाउड ग्रांट टू कंसिडर सम पास्ट द परमिशन गोल्डन द परमिसिबल डिडक्शंस जो है दो टाइप के बोलते हैं द परमिसिबल फॉल अंडर टू कैटेगरीज एक है कंपल्सरी डिडक्शंस एक है ऑप्शनल डिडक्शन रिकवरी द फुल रिकवरी फ्रॉम इनकम टैक्स कैटेगरी वन में बोलते हैं आपका क्या क्या जो है कि आप कर सकते हैं तो इनकम टैक्स क्या अगर प्रोवाइड द एम्प्लॉयज ईयरली इनकम कैलकुलेटेड विद द टैक्सेबल हाउस रेंट ठीक है लाइट चार्जेस ठीक है रिपेमेंट ऑफ लोन्स एंड एडवांसेस हाउस रेंट कटेगा उसको मिलेगा जरूर उसको कटेगा रिपेमेंट ऑफ लोन्स एंड एडवांसेस गवर्नमेंट एट सच रेट्स एज द हेड ऑफ द डिपार्टमेंट डीम्स इट right to fix taken from the government okay at such rate as the government right to fix so यार किस डिपार्टमेंट फिक्स कंट्रीब्यूशन अंडर ईजीएस का जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है सब्सक्रिप्शन एंड सीटीआईएस आपको पे करना है तो आपको कटता ही रहेगा ठीक है तो डिडक्शन फॉलोइंग अंडर कैटेगरी बी अब अगर हम कैटेगरी बी की बात करते हैं बी में क्या है बात करता है आपका प्राइमा प्रीमिया ड्यू ऑन पोस्ट लाइफ इंश्योरेंस अमाउंट ड्यू टू कोऑपरेटिव courts and cooperative credit society the refund of advances taken from general that is general provident fund तो उसका नहीं it has been further determination of foreign method should not be made on such laws क्या क्या है ये नहीं करनी है मतलब ठीक है तो उनका भी करना है should not be made ये एक तो ऑप्शनल है तो कंपलसरी हो गया एक ऑप्शनल हो गया एक बोलता है should not be made this subscription to a GPF okay amounts due on court attachments recovery of loss to a government for which a government servant is responsible. Recovery of loss. Following should not be made from the subscription. ठीक है, सब्सक्रिप्शन जो है टू अ जनरल प्रोविडेंट फंड जीपीएफ, सब्सक्रिप्शन नहीं करना है आपको, ठीक है। रिफंड ऑफ एडवांसेस चाहिए जीपीएफ, जनरल प्रोविडेंट फंड से अगर आपने कोई रिफंड ले रखा है, फंड ऑफ एडवांसेस, एडवांस ले रखा है आपने कोई, तो आप ऑप्शन है कर सकते हैं, नहीं भी कर सकते हैं, ठीक है। पोस्टल लाइफ में प्रीमिया है, कर सकते हैं, नहीं भी कर सकते हैं। अमाउंट ड्यू टू कोऑपरेटिव स्टोर्स को सोसाइटी कर सकते हैं, नहीं कर सकते हैं। लेकिन सब्सक्रिप्शन टू अ जीपीएफ नहीं कर सकते, आप सब्सक्राइब नहीं कर सकते उसमें, ठीक है। अमाउंट ड्यू टू कोर्ट अटैचमेंट, कोर्ट कभी कोर्ट ने कुछ अटैच कर दिया, अमाउंट उसका ड्यू है, नहीं कर सकते, ठीक है। और थर्ड है आपका रिकवरी ऑफ लॉस टू गवर्नमेंट फॉर विच द गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल, वो भी सब्सक्रिप्शन अलाउंस में से नहीं करना है। दिस इज रियली वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, ये रिकवरीज है, क्या क्या कर सकते हैं, क्या क्या नहीं कर सकते हैं, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक, ज़्यादा। फिर नेक्स्ट आता है रिगार्ड द रिकवरी ऑफ ओवर पेमेंट, गवर्नमेंट अथॉरिटी रिकवरी ऑफ ओवर पेमेंट की अगर हम बात करें, ठीक है, एक्सरसाइज डिस्कस करेंगे, फिर डिसाइड द रिकवरी शुड बी हेल्ड होली इन एबियंस और शुड बी फ्लैट रेट, or should be a flat rate not part of the Indian grounds and other companies exclude बॉडी में होता है कि अगर कोई ओवर पेमेंट हो गई है, ठीक है, और डिस्क्रिप्शन है कंपनी अथॉरिटी, अथॉरिटी का डिस्क्रिप्शन है कि वो होली होली जो है इन्हें देना है सारा, शुड बी एट अ रेट नॉट एक्सीडिंग वन थर्ड ऑफ द डी वगैरह को एंड कॉम्पनसेट traveling allowances entitlement for appearing before police have had under consider if what rates allowed to the government servant who is under suspension not perform uh, or perform journey to attend police, okay, types of crime. The government says under suspension performs journey to attend in court. The government servant takes a journey during appearing and and is later on court recorded and reinstated in service or would have been in service but that or his having attained the age of retirement or allowed to retire, where a government servant जो है undertakes a journey during for appearing court of law as an accused and is later on acquitted in the condition से और पहले है later on जो है acquitted by the court and reinstated in service, reinstate भी कर दिया सर्विस में, or would have been reinstated in service but for death or is having attained the age of compulsory retirement being allowed to retire voluntarily, would have reinstated but for death or is having attained the age of compulsory retirement or being allowed to retire completely, आपको ट्रैवलिंग अलाउंस देना है। एज रिगार्ड्स केसेस टू द फर्स्ट टाइप इट हैज बीन डिसाइडेड दैट journey on allowed government service for such journey provided that they are performed in the direction of the approved HOD office having employed and was employed under suspension, ठीक है। as regard to case of first aid the traveling allowance जो है as for tour okay that has been decided that traveling allowance जो है as for that they are performed under the direction of they are performed under the direction of or head of office which he is or for the time being employed or बात करते हैं एज रिगार्ड्स केसेस इट इज ऑब्जर्व दैट वाले केस में क्या है, इट इज ऑब्जर्व दैट ट्रैवलिंग लाइसेंस जो है सर्विस कैन नॉट पार्ट ऑफ द क्लेम्स part of the claims for reimbursement of a cost by the UPSC article this in of this that is journey tour journey on tour based on based on certain reimbursement. provided the legal extension incurred by him in defending such are reimbursed to him. Provided the legal expenses incurred by him in defending are reimbursed to him in full or in part under the proposed article. Cases where the journeys were performed by the government by rail class, then the paid for journeys for perusal of documents, the TA job as a journey on to the analysis for only may be allowed to the government service. Okay. Okay. For perusal, it has been decided that TA जो है traveling allowance for a journey of on tour, for journey of tour including daily allowances for halts restricted to a maximum of 3 days only. ठीक है, may be allowed to the government servant whether on duty or on leave under suspension. ठीक है, for the journeys undertaken by them to the stations where the official reports are made available, the TA will be allowed to from the headquarter. Okay, the TA है that will be allowed from headquarter to the government servant and from any place from where the government servant may be spending his leave or where the civilian officer has been permitted on his own request to reside, but not exceeding what would be admissible had the journey been undertaken from headquarter to the headquarter of the government servant. उससे exceed नहीं करेगा, but not exceeding what would have had the journey been undertaken from the headquarter of the government servant. The grant of travelling allowances will the following condition. ये कुछ कर दिया इन्होंने इसको भी to following conditions. क्या क्या है? Inquiring officer certifies, जो भी inquiring officer है certifies that the official reports to be considered are relevant. So the official reports that to be considered are relevant and essential for the professional development. The competent authority certifies that the original reports would not be sent to the headquarter station. The government or the bulk of documents rules out the possibility of copies being made out. Bulk of the document rules out the possibility of copies being made out. And the head of office जो है under whose administrative control the government servant is the journey has performed with the head of office है ना, whose administrative control the government servant is certifies that the journey was performed with his. It has also been decided that in case of officers not under suspension at the time of undertaking of the journey, the period spent in transit to and from minute of stay required in the place where official reports are made available for perusal should be treated. ठीक है, अगर जो है the officer not under suspension है अगर, it will be treated as duty or leave according as the officer is on duty or on leave at the time. In case of officers under suspension who are subsequently reinstated in service, the period will be treated as duty. In case of officers under suspension who are subsequently reinstated in service, the period will be बोलता है in case of officers under suspension who are subsequently reinstated in service, the period will be treated as duty, leave or otherwise in accordance with the order passed by the competent authority. Grade 4 traveling allowance. Conditional traveling allowance derived by the grade to which he belongs prior to his suspension. Notwithstanding, for attending department, a government servant under suspension required to perform journey to attend the department inquiry may be allowed traveling for as for the journey on tour. Okay. Maybe under suspension required to perform a journey. Who is required to perform a journey to attend the department inquiry may be allowed for traveling as for a journey on tour from his headquarters to the place of where he headquarters to the place where the journey is held out from the place of permitted to reside during suspension. So no travel allowance will be however admission inquiry held outside at his request. However, no traveling allowance will be the inquiry held at the outstation at his request. TA when headquarters and traveling allowance when headquarters of a government servant under suspension change in public interest. It has been decided that competent authority can change the headquarters of a under public interest. Regulatory. So traveling allowance is regulated by the grade. Okay, don't prior to the suspension. Advance of travel allowance, settlement under suspension were required to inquire in connection with the suspension at their headquarters. Okay, outside their headquarters. Okay, may be paid advance of daily allowance. that they may be paid daily allowance in addition to advance of actual fare. दोनों चीज मिल जाएंगे आपको. May be paid advance of daily allowance as well as advance of actual. ठीक है, daily allowance. The advance of daily allowance would be restricted to allowance in the period of journey plus daily allowance for 1 day at the station of inquiry. In case, however, the inquiry specifies the period of advance. अदर एंटाइटलमेंट बोलता है लीव एनकैशमेंट और सुपरविनेशन वाइल अंडर सस्पेंशन. लीव एनकैशमेंट अथॉरिटी गवर्नमेंट टू ग्रांट लीव मे विदहोल्ड होल और पार्ट ऑफ कैश इक्विवेलेंट only in the case of concern who retires from service on attaining the. ठीक है, the authority competent to grant leave may withhold whole or part of cash equivalent of earned leave in the case of government servant who retires from service on attaining the age of supervisor while under suspension or while disciplinary or criminal are pending against him if in the view of the supervisor that there is possibility some money becoming recovered from him on the conclusion of proceeding against him. On conclusion of proceeding, he will be eligible to amount so withheld after judgment of the government dues if any. HRA की बात करें तो HRA is the role of house and allowance to shall be regulated by the present different three or subject to furnishing either. ये केस में होगा yes subject to furnishing either or both the certificate prescribed in para 8A for drawal of allowances for periods beyond 4 months, that is 120 days, now 6 months from the date of suspension. Not if the headquarters of government servant under suspension are changed in the public interest by order of the government, shall be entitled to the allowances admissible provided he furnishes the requisite certificate with reference to. ठीक है, the drawal of house rent allowance to a government servant under suspension shall be certified with reference to FR 53 and 54, subject to the furnishing either or both certificates prescribed in para 8D for drawal of allowances for period or drawal of allowances. Okay, allowances for period beyond 4 months या फिर 120 days, now 6 months from the date of suspension. Daily allowance, suspension grant daily allowance on the basis of subsidy allowance. Yes, may be granted daily allowance on the basis of subsidy allowance paid from him from time to time. Interim relief, the interim relief will be admissible during leave, joining time, and periods of suspension to be calculated in the same way as dearness allowance on such occasion. Okay. The interim relief will be admissible. Yes, it will be admissible during leave के टाइम पे और ज्वाइनिंग टाइम पे, पीरियड ऑफ सस्पेंशन के टाइम पे, टू बी कैलकुलेट इन सेम वे एज, और ये किस तरीके से कैलकुलेट किया जाएगा, एज डियरनेस अलाउंस ऑन सच ओकेजन. ठीक है, एडवांस फॉर परचेज ऑफ कन्वेंस नहीं, वो मना है. shall not be granted who is under suspension, and if और अगर एडवांस भी दे देगा has already been sanctioned to him for his place in suspension shall not be permitted to draw. ठीक है, चिल्ड्रन एजुकेशन ये अलाउड है. ठीक है, परचेज ऑफ बुक्स से अलाउंस हो गया और सब्सिडी हो गया फॉर परचेज ऑफ बुक्स. हॉस्टल सब्सिडी शैल बी एडमिसिबल, ये एडमिसिबल है आपके लिए. इंटरिम रिलीफ एडमिसिबल है. वाइल सस्पेंशन इज ऑन लीव इंक्लूडिंग बोलता है, और अंडर सस्पेंशन और इज ऑन लीव, एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी लीव पर है तो. Provide fund that during any period which is treated as diagonal, the government should not be eligible for the allowance. Okay, further बोलता है, the government servant shall not be eligible for allowance, reimbursement, and during any period of which is as diagonal, the government servant shall not be eligible for allowance, reimbursement facility for the period. LTC खुद के लिए बना है, हम नहीं ले सकते. क्वेश्चन LTC to clarify, the government servant cannot avail of LTC. ठीक है, गवर्नमेंट सर्वेंट जो है as he cannot get any leave including the casual leave during the period of suspension, as he cannot get any kind of leave including casual leave during the period of suspension, as he continues to be in service during the period of suspension, members जो है of his family are entitled to LTC. Leave may not be granted to government servant under, because this is really very important. The leave है that may not be granted to any kind of leave. House building allowance दे सकता है. There is no specific provision in the existing house building allowance as to whether or not the payment should be or placed under matter with the show that an official under suspension prevented from carrying out of government servant and accounts. His other rights and obligations should not be felt as the central government's mortgage under suspension continues to be eligible for advance of payments of this account can be made them by the head of the department subject to the condition. They can be made to the subject to the condition that collateral security in the shape of mortgage bond from two permanent central government should be obtained, so that in the event of default, general payment of the money being available by foreclosures, so the money may be made up by the collateral security. It is further clarified that the mortgager of the required deed, that is, permanent government servant who mortgage their property as collateral security in order to make the government eligible for house loan, will be required to bear the they will be required to bear the stamp duty. Further clarified that the mortgager of the required deed, that is the permanent government servant who mortgage their property as collateral security in order to make the government servant eligible for house loan, is the treatment of fee concession. Treatment of license fee free concession. Treatment of license fee free concession. Treatment of license fee free concession. Okay. A question is whether government servant enjoying license fee free concession at the time of suspension will continue to enjoy the license fee concession will cease to the license fee free concession will cease to from the date of suspension. The government servant under will not be required to vacate the license. Okay, will not be required to vacate the license fee for accommodation unless the accommodation is attached to the specifically attached to the particular post. However, from the date of suspension, license fee will be recovered. Right? However, from the date of suspension, the license fee will be recovered from him on assuming that he was not in occupation of license fee for accommodation at the time. That is for the purpose of recovery license fee, his emoluments will be taken as laid down. Okay. If subsequently the government servant is allowed for the period of suspension, full pay and allowances, and the concession of license fee for will be resorted to him and license fee funded to him. Okay. If subsequently that the government servant is allowed for the period of suspension, full pay and allowances, again then the concession of license fee accommodation will be resorted to him and license fee will be refunded to him. If the period of suspension is treated as one spent on leave, but then if the period of suspension is treated as one spent on leave, okay, then the officer will be refunded the license they will be refunded the license fee charged for the first month only. Okay. This difference between the license fee recovered on the basis of grant and the license fee due in terms of para this, where the period of leave granted to an officer who has been allotted residence for a month, the officer concerned is permitted to retain the residence by the command. The usual license fee will be recovered for any period of leave exceeding 1 month. Okay. According to the record for any month, इसके लिए shall be recorded in respect of the period exceeding 1 month. If such a government servant is made to vacate license fee, okay? If such a government servant is made to vacate the license free occupation either because he specifically attached to the particular post or any other reason, he will not be allowed to draw. In that case, he will not be allowed to draw house rent allowance prescribed in lieu of license fee free occupation. But if his headquarters the time of suspension is placed at a place which is classified city or hill station at which house rent allowance is admissible to other central government servants, he will be allowed to house rent allowance at the rates. But if कहता है but if his headquarters at the time of suspension is a place which is classified city or hill station at which house rent allowance is admissible to other central government allowance servants, then he will be allowed to retain the house allowance at the rates and subject applicable to the government servant. The house rent will be calculated with reference to pay that he was drawing at the time of suspension. Okay. Transport allowance, according to the provision, the suspended officer do not attend the office. No justification for transport allowance नहीं मिलेगा उसमें. Suspended officers जो हैं do not attend office during suspension. Therefore, no justification for getting transport allowance for the period of suspension. Suspension period covers a calendar month partially. Transport allowance payable for that month shall be reduced proportionally. जो है calendar month partially अगर करता है, where the suspension जो है that covers month partially. ठीक है, जो transport जो allowance है will be payable for that month proportionally. Payment of provisional pension on suspension while under suspension. The payment of provisional pension on superannuation while under suspension. In respect to the government surrender referendum, the account officer shall authorize the provisional pension. ठीक है, तो अकाउंट ऑफिसर जो है क्या कर सकते हैं, दे शैल ऑथराइज द प्रोविजनल पेंशन इक्वल टू द मैक्सिमम पेंशन व्हिच हैड बीन एडिशनल ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ क्वालिफाइंग सर्विस अप टू द डेट ऑफ रिटायरमेंट, or if he is under suspension on the date of retirement up to the date immediately preceding the date on which he was up to the date considered immediately preceding the date on which he was placed in a suspension. Provisional pension shall be authorized by account officer commencing from the date following the date of retirement up to and including the date on which after the conclusion of departmental duty final orders are passed by the competent authority. Yeah, the provisional pension shall be authorized by the account officer during the period commencing from the date following the date of retirement up to and including the date on which after the conclusion of department the provisional pension shall be authorized by the account officer, ठीक है, during the period commencing from the date following the date of retirement and commencing from the date whose date थे, okay, commencing from the date following the date of retirement up to and including the date on which after the conclusion of department or judicial final orders are passed by the competent authority. No gratuity shall be paid. Well, then no gratuity shall be paid to government servant until the conclusion of the departmental the provisional pension shall be authorized by the government officer during the period commencing from the date from the date following the date of retirement up to and including the date on which after the conclusion of departmental final orders are passed by the competent authority. ठीक है, no gratuity shall be paid to the government servant. कोई भी gratuity जो है no gratuity shall be paid to the government servant until the conclusion of departmental final orders. The provisions of this rule shall not be applicable where allegations of are under investigation under government servant. The provision of this rule shall not be applicable where allegations of misconduct are under investigation against government servant or where departmental or judicial provisions are contemplated against government servant but have not actually instituted or deemed have been instituted according to this in the date of retirement. The pension and gratuity in such case shall be authorized to be paid by the government servant according to the rule. Provided that any department provision instituted after retirement this payment of provisional pension made under this shall be adjusted against final retirement. The provision that shall be adjusted against final retirement benefits sanctioned to such government servant upon the conclusion, but no recovery shall be made when where the pension finally sanctioned provisional. But the pension is reduced. The pension is reduced or withheld either permanently or by special. But no recovery shall be made when the pension finally sanctioned is less than the provisional pension. Okay, and the pension is reduced or withheld either permanently or specifically. Okay, 10% provisional pensions under Rule 69 grant mandatory. It is come to the notice find that some of the national authorities are not following Rule 69 of this independent rule, which can provide that the government servant who has retired and against whom any departmental or provision are instituted and or on continued shall be paid provisional pensions. The payment of provisional pension under these rules is mandatory. The payment of provisional pension under these rules are mandatory, but some administrative authorities appear to be under the impression that in cases where the department of the penalty and in which ultimately no pension might become payable on the retirement in this, so even the provisional pension need not be given. This view is against the letter of the rule. The ministry are therefore requesting and that them the correct provision not denied. Rather, provisional pension in such cases should not be exceeded the maximum pension. Provisional pension in such cases should not exceed the maximum pension would have been admissible on the basis of qualifying service up to the date of retirement. It has been reported that direction the department had discretion vested in the head of office by these rules, which lay down the ceiling of provisional pension being used by them to pay less than 100%. run by these lay down ceiling for provision pension being used by them pay less than 100% the admissible pension. Understand that even if the cases are covered by 100 otherwise admissible authorized. तो इस तरीके से हमारा जो ये चैप्टर नंबर 4 है ये भी कंप्लीट होता है, दैट इज सस्पेंशन की एंटाइटलमेंट्स। राइट, विद दिस थैंक यू सो मच एंड हैव अ ग्रेट डे।